Hey, this is Evan Marcoutts, dating and relationship coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Welcome back to the Love You podcast. This is the place where you learn to understand men, make better dating relationship choices, operate from a place of confidence and abundance, and get the lasting love you deserve. I have more client success stories than other dating coaches have clients, but that's only because I'm really old. Really old's relative, isn't it? Right? I'm 52. That's not that old. Is it? Is it old? I'm not going to worry about it. I feel really good about the work that I'm doing here. I'm really excited for today's episode. I had a lot to say, and I wrote it all down, so you're in for a treat. I'm also excited to announce the second installment of the Extraordinary Love Series. It's coming up in a couple days. The Extraordinary Love Series is a free online webinar that I'm doing with a lecture series and a live Q&A for high-value women seeking high-value men. This month's topic is going to be the 3 biggest blind spots women have in dating. If you want to find out what those blind spots are, I encourage you to register. Go to extraordinaryloveseries.com, put in your name, email address, and phone number, and get on the list. The first time we did it, less than a month ago, we had nearly 200 registrants, and now we've got some partners on board. So I anticipate the call is going to be even bigger, even better. The more questions we get, the bigger community we create, and the more impact, hopefully, I could have on you and your love life, and helping you get the love that you richly deserve. If you're a regular listener, make sure that if you haven't already, you subscribe on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. Leave us a comment. I will notice the comment, read the comment, maybe reply to the comment, and I'm grateful for your service. This is what that's words of affirmation, guys. So that's what I get out of it, is your subscriptions, your comments. And so today, the topic is why single people need happily married friends. And this was inspired by a real life incident. And sometimes when I do these podcasts, I have like 3 bullet points and I just talk for 15 minutes about 3 bullet points. Somehow yesterday when I was writing this, I just decided to almost like write it like a blog post. So I'm probably going to do more reading than I normally do, and it's only because I was thinking very clearly about what I wanted to say. So if you're watching on YouTube, forgive me if I look down, but I've got a story to tell. And it's a story of seeing a friend of mine. His name is John. I'm not going to, it's actually his real name, but I don't think there's anything that's terribly embarrassing about him. I met him 15 years ago. I was recently married. He was part of a similar friend group. I moved to the suburbs and settled down and had a family. He stayed the course, lives in a cooler part of Los Angeles. He's, again, about my age, lawyer, cute, charming, very, very likable guy. Looks 10 years younger, dates younger women. Never got married, just stayed on his own path. And he's sort of a perfect example of a guy who's a genuinely great guy, might be a bad bet for a long-term relationship, and it's something he'd probably tell you himself. He's self-aware enough to know that because his parents had a bad marriage and divorce, he became an avoidant, and even though he longs for family, or always has longed for family and is close with his family, he always tilts towards freedom and never has managed to settle down. And like many people, when he sees me, and this is the lot in life of being a dating coach, and it's not that bad, when people see me, they tell me all their dating stuff. Like as soon as I show up, like all the stories come out, whether someone's in a relationship or whether they're single. And he was telling me a story. And this was, ironically, at a dating coach meetup, right? The dating coaching industry was originally centered here in Southern California. Now everybody with a phone is a dating coach. But back in the day, all the people who started doing this, 15, 20 years ago, they were all centered in Southern California. And we get together a few times every year to connect and talk trade. So I'm at this dating coach meetup. I see this friend who I haven't seen in a long time. He starts telling me instantly about his guy friend. And his guy friend is a nice, nerdy guy, I think is probably the way he described him. Pretty average, looking but bright, likable, worked hard, became successful, and due to partially his success, was able to land a woman who was objectively more attractive than he was, and he bought the big house out in the suburbs, out near where I live, and he was raising 3 kids, and he was living the American dream until he wasn't living the American dream, and his wife turned on him and became very dissatisfied with the marriage and started to cheat on him, and then blew up the marriage and is taking him to the cleaners in the divorce, and now the guy is living a nightmare. And I'm only sharing this with you because there's nothing terribly, unusual about the story. I don't even know if this is the official version of events. I haven't talked to him or her, but this is a version of events, and let's just assume for argument's sake that they're true, that she was completely at fault for what happened in the marriage. My friend John's takeaway is the reason I'm doing this podcast. His takeaway upon hearing the story is that this is a clear sign why nobody should ever get married. No one can have the American dream, no matter how it looks from the outside. It's always flawed. There's always cracks in the foundation. All couples are bound to crumble horribly, just like this guy, because I looked at this guy like he was leading the perfect life. And I remember a movie called Serendipity. I did a podcast about this years ago. A movie called Serendipity with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. And John Cusack was looking at his best friend, Jeremy Piven, who had the life and the wife and all that kind of stuff. And halfway through the movie, you realize it's not as great as it seems, and they're splitting up. And so this thing that marriages look good from the outside and they're not always good from the inside is not something new. But it's the interpretation of the events that I found so astonishing. He said this to me like it was a fact, right? Like no, there's no reason to get married. He's like, I'm so smart for passing up marriage and children, right? Like he felt like he was sitting on like some mountaintop dispensing wisdom towards me. And this is a very likable, bright guy who's saying with a straight face to me that he's got it all figured out for not getting married. What didn't he consider when he was sharing this anecdote with me? He didn't consider me. Like, he didn't consider me at all. The guy standing in front of him, who is very happily married now for almost 17 years, who has 2 kids that I get along with, who get along with each other out in the leafy suburbs of Los Angeles, right? And a guy who spends his whole life helping other people get some version of what I have because I believe in it, I've seen it, and I'm evangelical about it. Not that everybody gets it, but someone gets it, and so why not you? So my friend chooses his friend in the devastating divorce as his example of what marriage looks like, instead of choosing me as the example of what marriage looks like. And this is why I'm doing a podcast on why single people should have happily married friends. It's not terribly controversial. It's not really a hot take, but I do know that we all tend to congregate in our bubbles. I congregate in a bubble. I'll be the first to acknowledge that. I live with a whole bunch of people like me, middle-aged people with kids around the same age and income basically in the same range based on where we live. And so I know that my slice of life is a narrow slice of life that doesn't apply to everybody, but we're always looking for inspiration somewhere. And to some degree, we are the company we keep. You've probably heard the idea that if you want to be successful, hang out with other successful people. I remember reading some old, maybe made up factoid about, if you look at the people, your 5 best friends, 2 of them are going to make more money than you, and 2 of them are going to make less money than you, and you're going to be in the middle. And that's kind of how life works. I don't know that that's true. I think it's a clever idea. But would it surprise you if I told you that happily married people are more likely to hang out with happily married people, and unhappily married people are more likely to hang out with unhappily married people, and single people are more likely to hang out with single people? Of course. So we're all fish that are surrounded by water, but we don't really pay too much attention to the water. It's just what's around us. right? So if you grow up in an unstable environment with two fighting parents, right, that's going to cement your view of marriage and relationships. That's what marriage is turmoil and silent treatments and guessing games and screaming matches and divorce and separation, tears. You grow up with two parents who are best friends, who spend a ton of quality time together, you're going to have a completely different view of the exact same institution. All right. And if a doctor saved your kid's life in the hospital, you're going to have a better view of Western medicine than if your kid died due to complications during surgery. I mean, these things all make a certain amount of sense. And the only reason I'm doing this podcast is just to try to broaden your horizons. If, like a lot of people listening to this podcast, you're pretty down on dating relationships and men. I'm not saying you're wrong for being down on dating relationships and men. But if you're listening to this guy and this guy's friend who talk about women, gold diggers, selfish, short-sighted, unappreciative, if you're part of that world, do you think that's very effective to get a woman to like you? I don't. So I hope you can tell I'm never playing the right versus wrong game. Like, I'm not trying to come from any sort of high horse. Both situations are real. But I think we can agree that one is a more effective model for creating the life that presumably you want and how we want to be in the world. And if single women only hang out with other single women, and those single women tend to reflect the views of other single women who maybe are like the divorced women, like Bonnie Hunt and Jerry Maguire, the divorcees talking crap about men, or the tone of the women in the Are We Dating the Same Guy groups on Facebook. Or maybe just your two closest friends have either given up on love or are in an unhealthy long-term relationship that they don't have the courage to get out of. Of course, that's going to impact the way you view dating and relationships. So I just want to contrast that with my world, and I don't live in a fantasy land. Like, I live in maybe a self-created bubble because I like hanging out with other happy couples. But it's not like it's inaccessible to anybody else in the world. It's not an exclusive club. It's not a meritocracy. Anybody could get into the club. So this year I made 2 new guy friends. Right? Like, I'm thinking of them right now. Guys that I met at a party and I was like, I really dig you. And the unique thing that I discovered about both of these guys, and I don't know if it's a coincidence, both of them rave about their wives. Like, it's not something that's typical. It's not something guys normally do. They journal about them. In conversation, they will tell you how lucky they are, how they're still attracted to each other, how they share everything with each other, right? And how they couldn't really imagine life without each other, right? They're coming from a place of gratitude and appreciation for the anchor in their life. And I've met one of their wives, one of them I haven't met yet, but what a gravitational pull towards something positive when someone raves about the quality of their marriage. So I'm not going to pretend that this is common, right? Emotionally expressive men are in the minority, indeed. And yet I find myself drawn to people who have that life experience, who share my life experience. And maybe that's what it is. Because that's the way I feel about love, I seek out company of other people who feel that way. Would it be any surprise that if you're really down on dating relationships, online dating, men in your city, men your age, men in your area, whatever, is it any surprise that you're going to possibly seek out other people who reflect that same negative worldview back to you? It's not surprising to me, and I'm not even remotely judgmental about it. I'm just saying, I don't know how that gets you closer to your goal unless that's where you want to stay as the person who is really down on dating relationships in the opposite sex. So when my wife was first divorced, my wife was married before in her 20s. She got divorced, I think she was 30, 31. She and her 2 best friends, all married around the same time, all divorced at the same time. And they had a saying. This is their saying, my wife. Everybody cheats, nobody's happy. That was the worldview of these three best friends that anybody ever had back in the day when that's what they were going through. Then all three of these women ended up getting remarried to much better men when they turned 38. That's also true. And so you could find evidence of whatever you want to find evidence of when you're dating online. I'm not going to spend any time trying to convince you that what you're seeing isn't real or that there isn't a lot of dreck out there. Built into my coaching model is, hey, 90% of people are not your people. And that's okay. 90% of people are just not going to be your people. I wouldn't get too surprised or bent out of shape about it. So why whinge about the 90%? We're just saying we're looking for 10% of people, which makes sense. You only want to hang out with 10% of people in real life anyway. Like 10% of people at a party, you're going to be your people, right? Or the percentage of clothing that you want to try on at a store. I mean, it's generally going to be a smaller percentage. That's okay. And so when you're in that place, it's easy to get stuck there. And it's easy to convince yourself that that's the only version of reality. But if you only hang out with people who are negative, it's essentially like taking financial advice from a broke person. Who's the person, again, and this is, I'm not judging the broke person in this case. There's a lot of people who are down on their luck and it's not their fault. So I'm not even judging the broke person. But if we're spending all our time listening to people who believe the worst about the opposite sex and marital relationships, they're not the people who are going to lead you out of that dark tunnel. So in Love You, as part of my coaching program, probably in month 5, which is the unit on relationships, I ask my clients to interview their happily married friends about their husbands. Ask them, what makes your relationship different? What makes your husband different? Why did you choose this guy? And the answers never waver, like ever. You could ask almost anybody, and they're going to say something to the effect of, he has my back, he supports me, he accepts me for all of my flaws, he loves me unconditionally, he makes me laugh, he's a good man. I hear that, he's a good man. Right? And this brings to mind, I had to go look it up to find out who said it, but I knew the quote. This is Tolstoy in Anna Karenina. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. So what I'm arguing for is this sameness of healthy relationships, where men feel accepted, appreciated, and admired, and women feel safe, heard, and understood, right? And the definition of the relationship is that it's easy because they're fundamentally on the same team and any disagreements don't get in the way. And you do not have to be a dating coach to kind of get in tune with what a healthy relationship feels like, especially if you've been in bad relationships before and you can contrast them very, very easily. So as a dating coach for smart, strong, successful women, I don't begrudge anyone, especially you, if your life experience has demonstrated that relationships for you have been destructive and disappointing. Just know that these relationships that are destructive and disappointing all took place in the past. And today you can make different choices. You could create a different relationship in the future by making different choices with different men who you haven't even met yet. So last week I got an email from a former client who came from a very abusive background. I'm going to close on this story. Right? And when I say abusive, I mean really the worst case scenario: emotionally abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive relationships. Her 3 marriages all continued on some version of that pattern. They all lasted for less than 5 years. She hired me as her last resort in her early 60s during the pandemic. Right? And she trusted that there was something better out there for her. Now, I got an email last week. She is getting married for the 4th and final time at age 65, and I'm invited to the wedding in September. And she shared a picture of me and her new ring, and her fiance, whose house burned down in the LA fires, brought them even closer together. So these are 2 good people who came together through adverse life circumstances and built something that's even better than they could have imagined. It brings me to tears when I stop and think about what this woman has been through. So I'm just telling you, this is the world that I inhabit, where people actually get to live happily ever after with the person that they love. And today I just want to invite you to join me there. The water's warm. We are awaiting you. My name is Evan Mark Katz. This is the Love You Podcast. If you are a regular listener, don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. If you are not on my mailing list, and if you haven't gotten any coaching from me, please join me at the Extraordinary Love Series. It's taking place in a couple days. Each month I'm doing a Zoom call, lecture, live Q&A, hundreds of women there. This month's topic, the 3 biggest blind spots women have in dating. And I'm glad to take your questions about that. And finally, for those who have been listening and feeling something like, maybe there is something to that. Maybe I haven't surrounded myself with people who are inspiring me to get the love that I deserve. Maybe I need a little bit of support, someone whispering in my ear and helping to guide me. Go to evanmarkkatz.com/now, put in your name and email address, book a time to talk with me. I look forward to connecting with you. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you for being a part of the Love You podcast and supporting me over the years. And I look forward to connecting with you on our next installment. Have a great day. Bye-bye.